Okay, that's what I forgot. Okay, now it's being recorded. So anyway, data. Data are the facts and figures collected, analyzed, and summarized for presentation and interpretation. All data collected in a particular study are referred to as the data set. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so here is a data set. So what is this called? What's that called? I mean, what's the title of this?
Table.
Table. Okay, and a little bit more.
Data set for 60 nations in the World Trade Organization.
Right. So this is a data set. It's about countries, and specifically countries what? That are in the World Trade Organization. Okay, so that's what this data is about. So a data set will consist of columns and rows. Okay, so what are the names of the columns? Let me just expand this here. What are the names of the columns in this data set?
Nation, WTO status, per capita GDP, Fitch rating, and Fitch outlook.
Right, exactly right. How many columns are there? There's 5 columns, right? Okay, and then we have different rows. So the first row is what?
Armenia.
Armenia. The second row is?
Australia.
Australia. Okay, so this is our data set, and you can see basically what it looks like. Now let's close this for a second and go to the next thing. So we want to talk about what are called elements, variables, and observations. Okay, so let me just take a picture here. Let me do a little. Anybody ever use this application called OneNote? Anybody use it for anything? Is it good? Is it useful?
I'm sure it is. I haven't quite figured it out yet, though.
Right.
I think it's cool.
I only started to use it recently, but I think it's pretty good. Actually, there's 2 versions of OneNote. One is this 2016 version, which is something you download and install. But then there's this other one called OneNote for Windows 10, which is, I guess, free. Everybody gets it. It's like Notepad or something like that. So if I open up that one, looks like this. Somebody wrote yes. Can you erase that? Whoever wrote that, okay, thank you. So if I go to that one, this is pretty interesting. I'll just show you a few little tricks that I found on it just for fun. You can do this. First of all, if you want to, if I want to draw an axis, like x-axis, y-axis, I can click here, shapes, and you can do this. So this is convenient for me anyway. You can do that. And then, but you can also do this. Watch this. I will go to here, and I will write on the board. I'll use this pen, and I'm going to write like this. Let's see if this works. 2x plus 5 equals y. Okay, now watch this. So if I go there and I circle it like this, okay. And now I go to this thing. Where did it go? Oh, it's not in this. Oh, let's see. Okay, inked text. Okay, that's not what I meant though. Where did it go? It didn't work, right? Because I had it ignored that stuff. Here, I meant to go here. Okay, let me try that again. Let's go to, let me try it again. 2x plus 5y equals 10. Let's see if this works. Okay, now I circle it like this. And then I go here. Okay, so it found that, right? Okay, now, one thing that it will do, anyway, if it made a mistake, you can fix it. But anyway, it didn't make a mistake this time. So you can select an action here. So you can do solve for x or solve for y. So let's try that first. So it does that. And if it takes a lot of steps, it shows you all the steps. You know, if you have to do like 10 different steps, it shows you all of them. I guess here it was too simple to show that. Or you can also do this, that. Okay, let's try another one. Let's see. And this is like the little, this is the free version actually. The other one doesn't do this actually because it's older, but the free version does this. Let's try y equals e to the x. Maybe I didn't draw that very well, but let me try that. Let's see how that works. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, it worked. And then there's not, I guess you could solve, let's try, I wonder what it's going to do here. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so it solved for x, that's true. But anyway, I don't want to show you that, but I want to show you this. There, you can graph it. Okay, so it's pretty good. And like I said, you can also put in some nice shapes here, well, if you want to do math. So it seems to be kind of math-based in some way. But anyway, it's not really, but it does have this math thing in there. And you can also do ink to text. So you can write, where was it? Here. You can write, sorry, I have to pick a pen. And then you can do that. And now I can write I can write this. Let's see if this will work. I don't think so. This is statistics class. I don't think my writing is good enough. Let's see if it is. So if I circle it, and then go to ink to text. Oh, it worked. Okay, so it's pretty good. Okay, anyway, I just wanted to show you that. But now let me go to another, let me do, go back to the other one. And here. Okay, so anyway, let me go back to this data set idea. So we have a data set. Let's say it looks like this. It's not so easy to draw with these things. We just saw, sorry about that. Anyway, we just saw this data set. It was the World Trade Organization, WTO, right? And we had the nation here, and we had the status, WTO status. And we had GDP here or something, and so on. So, okay, now I want to, and this topic is called elements, variables, and something else. I think it was called measurements. Let's see. Observations. Okay, so elements, variables, and observations. So I just want to explain this idea. So let's say, so actually each row is called an element. So this is element 1. Next row would be element 2, and so on. So each row is called an element. So what is the first row in our data set? What is the first row?
Armenia.
It's about Armenia, right? What's the second row?
Australia.
Australia, okay. And down somewhere in this list, we're going to find Japan, right? So with any element, let's say we're talking about, so I'm just going to draw it abstractly. Okay, so here's an element. So this is an element. Okay, let's say it's Japan. We can measure many, many different things about Japan. Like I can measure, the population, right? I can measure the percentage male, right? I can measure, what else? The favorite beer, or I can say favorite beer of people that are between 18 and 21 or something like that. Anyway, favorite beer. I can do what else? I can say number of trains per day, number of trains running per day. I can do number of cities that have like population greater than 5 million or anything. I can just keep going on and on and on. I can measure many, 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 an infinite number of things. Looks like coronavirus. Infinitely many things about Japan, right? Does everyone understand? Each one of these is called an attribute of Japan. So the population is an attribute, or it's also called a variable with regard to Japan. So the favorite beer is another variable. The number of trains is another variable. The number of cities is another variable, and so on. Does everyone understand? So now that was just for Japan. That was for one particular element in our data set. So that was the Japan element. But there's also an Armenia element, and there's an Australia element. So for each element, we can measure many, many different variables. Does everyone understand this picture? Okay, for each element, you can measure many variables. Okay, let's go back to the book now. So here, what variables are we measuring in this data set? So like for example, let's go down to Japan. Okay, there's Japan. So what are we measuring about Japan? Which variables?
The WTO status.
Good, that's one. That's the first one, right? What else?
GDP.
GDP, per capita GDP, right? What else?
Which outlook?
Fitch rating and Fitch outlook, right? So in other words, what they're doing in that particular study is they are looking at, where's that thing again? I'll just go here. They are looking at, here's the elements, could be Japan, could be Armenia. They're looking at WTO status, GDP something, what else? Fitch rating and Fitch status or something. Fitch status. So that's the attributes or variables that they are looking at in this particular data set. Now they could have, measured a lot of other stuff too, right? But they didn't. That's not what they're interested in. That's not in the data set. But so going back to here. So what are the, so we just said what the variables are and what are the elements?
Nations.
The nations, that's right. The nations are the elements. Okay, so in a data set, usually the elements are the rows, or the rows are the elements. Okay, is this clear? And the columns are the variables. Okay, is this clear? Just a second. All right, so let's read these definitions. So what do we mean by the elements? The elements are the entities on which data are collected. So in our case, the entities are the nations. Now, another word for element is individual. Sometimes they use the word individual instead of element. Okay, you can use either word. So how many elements are there in our data set?
Not.
How many elements are there in our data set?
60.
60.
60.
Or I can ask the same question. How many individuals are there in our data set? It's
60.
the same question. Just they use the word individual or element. Individual doesn't have to be person in this context. Okay? All right. And then the variables are the attributes or characteristics of interest in the particular data set. So what are the variables here? This one, this one, this one, and this one. Right. Okay. All right. And now we have another word called observation. So what do they mean by observation? Measurements collected on each variable for every element in a study provide the data. Okay, so I thought, did they say measurement before? No. All right, so what do we mean by a measurement? Let's look at this. So 365 is called a measurement on Armenia with regard to GDP. 4975 is called a measurement on Australia with regard to GDP. 3879 is called a measurement on Azerbaijan with regard to GDP. Member is also called a measurement on Armenia with regard to WTO status. Observer is also called a measurement with regard to Azerbaijan, on Azerbaijan with regard to WTO status. So measurement doesn't just have to be a number in this case. Okay, we're not using it that way. So we can say we'll measure Australia's GDP or per capita GDP. We'll say we'll measure Austria's GDP. We also use the same word. We'll measure Austria's WTO status. We'll measure Bulgaria's Fitch rating. Okay, does everyone understand the word measure? Okay. And now the word observation is all the measurements for a particular element. Observation is all the elements for a particular element. So what is the observation? What is an observation for Armenia? What is an observation for Armenia? It's all the measurements. So what is it?
Member
Member
3615.
3615,
BB minus
Nice.
BB minus,
stable.
stable. That's a measure, I'm sorry, wrong. That's an observation, that's the observation for Armenia. What is the observation for Austria?
Member 49,755, AAA and stable.
Right. Okay, that was for Australia, right. Okay, so so what does observation mean? So measurements collected on each variable for measurements collected for each variable for every element is called the whole data set. Okay, if we do it for every element, that's the whole data set. The set of measurements obtained for a particular element is called an observation. Right? Everyone get it?
Yes.
Okay. So right about now, we would normally have, or actually we would have already had one quiz, and then right about now we would have a second quiz. And the quiz would be, you do some little group work first, and then you'd have an individual quiz. But we don't have those ready today, so we won't do it today. But that's how, hopefully, we're going to run the class. Okay? So we would, in that group problem, you'd say, okay, is this an element, or is this what is this? In fact, what we're going to do right now is have a poll. So because we can't do a quiz. So we're just going to have a poll about it, let me just make sure I have the right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do a poll now about something we just covered instead of a quiz. So let me try that. I'm going to do a poll if I can find where everything is. Where is it? Oh, there. Okay, I'm going to do a poll. Where's the poll? Oh, there. Okay. Add a question. Okay. So the question is, okay. Okay, now I have to show you the question, the answers. Okay. Wait. Try that again. Don't answer it yet. Okay, now let me try it again. Okay. So go ahead and answer the poll. Did everyone see the poll?
Yes.
Okay, so just choose your answer. Okay, I'll give you, wait a few more seconds. Okay. Now I'll share the results. Okay, now the question was, which of these is a measurement? So WTO status per capita, Fitch rating, BBB. So what is WTO status? What would you call that? Is that an element? Is that a variable? Is that an observation?
The
Is that a measurement? It's a variable, right? It's not an element. It's not an observation. It's not a measurement, right? It's a variable. Okay, what about, remember, what are we talking about? We're talking about these concepts: elements, variables, observations, measurements, right? Okay, so what about this? Is it an element? Is it a measurement? Is it a variable? Is it an observation?
Variable.
It's also a variable.
The variable.
Okay, how about Fitch rating?
Same.
A variable. Okay, what about BBB?
Measurement.
Measurement.
That's a measurement right here, right? It's a measurement, for example, for Bahrain. Okay? So the answer is BBB, or 4, which actually most people said 2. Okay? So we have to learn to get these concepts straight. If you don't get them straight, it's going to be really hard to do a good job. Okay? All right, let's see what else. Let me close this thing. And let me go to here. Okay. Now, let's go back to that table. Does anybody know what any of this stuff means? So what does WTO status mean? Anybody know what that means?
Whether they're part of WTO or not, like
Yeah,
whether
what
they're a
is
member
WTO?
World Trade Organization.
What is that?
It's part of the UN. It's like the one that regulates over the relationships that countries have when they want to trade with each other, like imports, exports, and like bans, tax stuff.
Is it part of the UN?
it is.
Oh, interesting.
Is
Okay,
it?
part of the U. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know,
Okay.
to be honest.
It
So
is, isn't it? Just like who? It's like
yeah,
it's
who?
the UN.
Who?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
What is who?
World Health Organization.
Oh, World Health Organization. Right,
Right.
right. It's part of the UN. Okay, right. They're both part of the UN.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Now I'm confused.
I believe you. I don't know. Um, I only know statistics. Okay. And what is the next one? Per capita GDP. What does that mean?
Income a single person earns in a country.
What is it?
Income, average income of a single person in a country.
Right. Average income. So,
Mm.
yeah. So how about between Armenia and Australia? There's a big difference, right? Right? Like a factor of about 15. Right? Approximately 15, right? So what does that mean?
Australia has a higher earning, individual higher earning than Armenian people.
Right.
Yeah,
It's kind of a measure of standard of living, right?
yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't have said that, but a student in the previous class said that. So I'm quoting from a previous student. Okay. Now, what's the next one?
The credit rating of each country.
Credit rating. What does that mean? I mean, I understand. Yeah, I mean, credit rating, I have a vague idea of what that means, but I sort of think of it more about stocks. Like, but this is credit rating. So what does this mean?
I think from the perspective of WTO, it's like whether you would give that country a loan or not. For example, Australia has a AAA rating, so you're probably more likely to get loans from like world organizations like IMF and World Bank, whereas Armenia is far less likely, or something like that. I think that's
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if, I mean, I have no idea. I've never thought about this ever before in my life. So, I'm not an expert at all. But I think, I mean, just when you said that, I thought, well, maybe they might give Armenia a loan more quickly than Australia because, they might need it more or something. But I don't know. But
maybe.
anyway,
Maybe.
it might also be like a bond market or treasury notes, right? Do you know what the bond market is or treasury notes? Bond market countries, why do countries have treasury notes? Why do they do that? Well, a student in another class said that countries always want to spend more than they have. So he said, that's what he said. So he meant, basically they want to borrow money. Now, I don't know why they can't just print money, but anyway, they want to borrow money. So who are they going to borrow money from? And how are they going to do it? Well, like she said, they could borrow it from the WTO, maybe, but also they can just borrow it from individuals by issuing treasury notes or bonds, right? So you can you can lend money to some country. Like if you want to lend money to the United States, you can buy their treasury notes or bonds, and you'll buy like whatever, $10,000. You give it to them. They give you that note, and then maybe in 10 years they promise to give you $15,000 back or something like that, right? So Fitch can rate the different countries according to what how likely they are to go bankrupt or pay back their whatever, right? Right? Everyone understand that?
I guess.
So I don't know, maybe it's like, you know, like the WTO lending or just people lending, whatever. It's a rating, right? Of how likely they are to pay it back, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So which is better, triple A or triple B?
Probably A.
Yeah,
Triple A,
triple
I
A
guess.
triple A is better than triple B.
Okay.
And which is better, triple A or double A?
Triple A?
Probably triple A, right?
Triple A.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our Fitch rating, and then there's one last variable. What's that called?
Fitch outlook.
Yeah. And if you look here, it can be stable, negative, or positive.
Mm.
All right. Does everyone understand this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is Egypt's Fitch outlook measurement?
Negative.
Negative. I want to use that word measurement, right? What is France's WTO status measurement?
Member.
Member. So I want us to understand that measurement doesn't have to be a number in this context. Okay, normally we think of measurement as a number, but it doesn't have to be a number here. Okay? What is France's per capita GDP measurement?
36,000.
36,857.
What is its Fitch rating measurement?
Triple A.
What, right, what is its Fitch outlook measurement?
Negative.
Negative. Okay? Everyone understand these words? Right. Okay, once we know about measurements, we can distinguish between different types of measurements. So again, here's this table. How many variables are there here?
Four variables.
Right. I might call this a variable also, but the book doesn't call it. So I might call this the name of the element. Remember, elements have attributes, and one of them I could put as name. Okay, sorry about that writing, but name could be an attribute, but the book doesn't do it. It doesn't think of it that way. Okay, so anyway, we'll say there's only 4 attributes or 4 variables. All right? Now, you know, normally when you think of a variable, like I think most people probably when you think of the word variable, they tend to think of something like X and Y, right? But that's really not what we're doing. We're thinking of variable in a different framework in statistics. Okay, so we don't really mean X and Y. And in fact, we already said what we mean by variable. What do we mean? It's an attribute of an element. Now that doesn't contradict the normal concept of variable, but it's a different way of thinking of it. But it doesn't contradict this, okay? So anyway, we have 4 variables, but somehow they're kind of different in some important way. So what I mean by that is that per capita GDP is different than the other 3 in an important way. Of course it's different. It's not the same as WTO status, it's not the same as Fitch rating. So, you know, it's obviously different, but I don't mean that. I mean, it's kind of, there's some other way that it's different. What am I thinking of?
Numeric. The number.
Numerical.
Yeah, that's right. It's a number, right? In fact, that's the normal way that we think of variables, right? Usually we don't think of variables as not numbers, but now we will be. Okay? So we want to distinguish between the sort of types of variables. So we can distinguish numeric and non-numeric, first of all. So this is numeric, and the other ones are so-called non-numeric. We're going to make some other distinctions as well. So we talk about nominal scale, or nominal, the way that we measure is nominal, or the type of variable is nominal. Nominal scale means the possible scale means the possible values for the variable. So what are the possible values for WTO status? What are the possible measurements?
Member and
Member and
observer.
And observer. I think that might be all. What are the possible values for Fitch outlook?
Stable.
Stable.
It was stable, positive, and negative. Okay, I think that was it. What are the possible Fitch rating measurements or scale?
AAA, AA,
AAA, AA, single A, right?
triple
like
B,
that.
triple B minus,
Right,
double B
so on and
minus.
so forth, right. Okay. And, but for this one, obviously, you know, kind of like almost infinite, right? Maybe not infinite, but anyway, a lot. Okay? All right. So first of all, we want to talk about nominal type of measurements. So nominal, does anybody know another word or anybody know what this means, nominal?
Categorical.
Like not the real one. It includes inflated value or something like that.
I'm not sure
Like
about that,
not
but
the exact value.
do you know if there's anybody speak French?
Nom is for name. Nombre? Wait, that's
Oh, nombre, right. Nombre is Spanish, right? That's right. Nombre is Spanish. What does that mean? Let's see.
name.
Let's
Number.
use. No, it doesn't mean number. It means, let's do Spanish. Okay, it's right there. Nombre. Names. So your name is nombre. And how about let's try French. Let's look up name in French.
It's no.
Oops, sorry. Other way around. French here. Nom. Okay? Also means name. Okay? And then probably if we look up Italian, it's gonna, well, let's try Italian. Okay? Okay, so they're all coming from Latin. And that word nominal also, same thing, means name. In other words, if we do this, nominal scale is not number. It's like names. The values are not numbers, they're names, just like this. This is a name, this is a name. It's like a word. This is also kind of a name, and positive is a name, and so on. Okay, is this clear? So nominal scale means like these, not number. Okay? Everyone get it?
I
Okay,
have a
now,
question.
yeah.
Why wouldn't Fitch outlook be an ordinal scale? Because you could think about
Okay,
the order.
It is an ordinal scale. You're right.
Oh,
It is. You're right. But it's also nominal because it's not a number. Let's read nominal. What I'm saying is, if something is nominal, if something is ordinal, it's also nominal.
What is ordinal?
Okay, well, he used the word ordinal, so I'm just talking to him so far. I'm just trying to reply to his question. So anyway, you're right, it's ordinal, okay? So when the data, okay, nominal. Okay, now let's look at this. This is also actually, we're going to call it nominal, but it's more than nominal. What does this have that this doesn't have? What does Fitch rating have that WTO status doesn't have? Somebody already said it.
Minus.
Did I lose everybody?
More variables.
Are you still here? What's different about this one than WTO status?
Each rating has more options.
More options, that's definitely true. That's definitely true.
Is it that WTA only has member or observer, while the Fitch rating has BB plus, AA plus, and so on?
Yeah, so he just said that too. He said Fitch rating has more categories. That's true, but there's something else besides that.
Fitch rating, like it includes a ranking.
Yeah, it's a ranking, right? What is it? What do we mean by that?
Credit rating.
I already asked you. I said, which is better, AA or AAA?
AAA is better.
We already said AAA was better, right? So you already recognize there's a ranking there, right? Okay. What are we going to call that?
Ordinal scale.
Ordinal scale. Why do we use that word ordinal?
Because it's in order, I guess.
Because there's a natural order to it, right? Right? So you can rank it according to that natural order.
Yes.
Right? So we use the word ordinal for data that can be ranked, or I'm sorry, for measurements that can be ranked. Okay?
Yes.
So the scale of measurement for a variable is considered ordinal if the data exhibit the properties of nominal. So it's nominal, but it also has this ability to rank. Okay? Is that clear? Now, some people might say there's a ranking here, member versus observer, but that, you could, maybe you could say that, maybe not. So you might want to say that it's ordinal, but we're just going to call it not ordinal. Okay? But this is definitely ordinal. Okay, is that clear? So
Yes.
ordinal can be ranked. Okay. Now, let's talk about another type of data. So we've talked about nominal and ordinal. Now we're talking about numeric data. And we're going to distinguish between okay. So how about let's talk about numeric data SAT scores. You know what they are, right? Okay. So, here, sorry. If one country is AAA, and this country is AA, right? Everyone see that? Austria is triple, and Belgium is double. So who's got a better Fitch rating?
Austria.
Austria. But can you tell me how much better? Does that question make much sense? How much better? Not really.
Not
right?
yes.
I mean, you could say it has an extra A, but that's not really a meaningful thing to say, right? We can't talk about the difference between ratings. We can say which one is better, but we can't like subtract ratings. However, how about if we talk about SAT scores? Suppose this person A got 620 and person B got 550. Can you say who did better?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you say how much better?
Yeah.
Yes, if we subtract.
You can subtract, right? So if you can subtract the values, then that's called interval scale. If you can say how much better, better definitely has ordinal in it, in its part of its meaning. But if you can say how much better, then that is interval scale data. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
So SATs, you can say, you know, this person, how much better did A do than B?
70 points.
Yeah. And if this is C, how much better did B do than C?
80 points.
3 point.
80 points. So we can do that kind of calculation. When you can do that, that's called interval scale. All right? You can't do that here. Now the next scale, the last scale, is called ratio scale. So suppose that somebody weighs 80 kilos, and suppose somebody else weighs 40 kilos. Can you consider the ratio 80 over 40? And can you say the one person weighs twice as much as the other person? Yeah, of course. Right?
Yes.
You can do that, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about time, waiting time. Suppose one person waits for the bus 5 minutes and somebody else waits for the bus 10 minutes. Can you consider their ratio 10 over 5 and say the second person waited twice as long as the first person? Yeah, of course, right? You can do that, right? Now, you might not realize this, but you really can't do that with SAT scores. If one person got 620 and another person got 310, you can't say that one person, the 620 did twice as well. That doesn't make sense for SATs. It's not really measured that way. Okay? So that doesn't really make sense in that case. So SAT scores are not really ratio scale. If they are interval because you can take differences, subtraction, but they're not ratio because their ratios don't really make sense. Just like, you know, if you take double, how about if you do this? Can I do this? Does this make sense? Tell me if this makes sense. Does that make sense? No, you can't do anything like that with ratings, right?
Yes.
You can't consider ratios. So this is not ratio data or ratio scale. All right? Now, suppose that, how about this? Temperature, centigrade. Suppose that you say, yesterday the temperature was 15, and today the temperature is 30. You can say it's 15 degrees hotter. So its interval scale makes sense. But you can't really say that it's twice as hot today as it was yesterday. It doesn't really make sense to say that. Oh, it's twice as hot today as it was yesterday. For example, let me give you an example. In Fahrenheit, you know, everyone heard of Fahrenheit?
Yes.
So in Fahrenheit, this might be about 50 degrees. I'm just trying to guess right now. Okay, and this might be 90 degrees. So this is not double that, or vice versa. So it's just depending on the scale. So it doesn't make sense to say it's twice as hot today just because of this. Okay?
Professor, so the temperature is not a ratio scale, right?
Right.
Uh.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay, so, but on the other hand, there is a temperature which is ratio scale. So centigrade is not ratio scale, and Fahrenheit is not ratio scale. But there's another thing. What's it called?
Kelvin?
Kelvin. You probably, most of you have heard of Kelvin, right?
Mhm.
What is Kelvin?
Don't know.
So when it's 0 degrees, I think the Kelvin amount is 273, I think, if I remember correctly. So, okay. Does anybody else remember that? 273? No? Well, anyway, that's the way it works. Okay, that's Kelvin. 273 is, I think, equal to 0 centigrade. Okay? Now, but what is 0 in Kelvin, and what does this mean? This has a meaning. What does it mean?
Absolute zero.
Absolute 0. What does that mean, absolute 0?
The limit.
Limit? No. Maybe, but not really. What does absolute 0 mean? It's cold, right? Very, very, very cold. But that's not what it means. I mean, there's more of a meaning than that.
Low temperature.
What?
I believe it's the lowest temperature.
Yeah, it's the absolute lowest temperature. That's right. And what do we mean when what does temperature actually measure? In physics, what do we say temperature measures? Measures the
Molecular
energy of the molecules, right? It measures the energy of the molecules, right? So what does absolute 0 mean?
Lowest scale?
It means the molecules are not moving at all. 0 movement. They have 0 energy, movement energy. They're not moving at all. That's what absolute 0 means. You know, normally in a gas, you know, the molecules are moving all around. And I guess even in a solid, they're moving around to some degree or something. And but when they're not moving at all, then that's absolute 0. So when Kelvin is 0, that means absolute 0. That's equal to centigrade of this. Okay? Then using Kelvin scale, that is ratio. In other words, if one thing is 100 degrees Kelvin and another thing is 200 degrees Kelvin, we can say that this has twice as much energy, this system has twice as much energy as this system. Okay? So ratios make sense when you're using Kelvin. So the only time that ratio data makes sense is when 0 means that you have none of whatever it is you're trying to measure. So here, when we have 0 for centigrade, it doesn't mean we have none of something. It's just an arbitrary thing. It means that's when water freezes. It's not the absence of what you're trying to measure. So when 0 means the absence of what you're trying to measure, then that measurement is a ratio scale. All right, does it make sense? Okay. Now we have, what are the measurements we have? Nominal. What word is that? Name. Ordinal. What word is that?
Order or rank.
Order.
Order or
Order.
rank.
Rank.
Interval, when you can, so this is not interval, right? This is ranked, but it's not interval. But SAT scores are interval, but they're not ratio, okay? But weight is ratio. Height is ratio. Distance, time are all ratio. Okay?
Hmm.
Okay. All right, so let's have another poll. Do another poll here. Okay. Wait, sorry, not that. How do I do a new poll? I can't do a new one. Relaunch polling, edit. I guess I have to edit it. Okay, here. So the question is, now let's see if I can get this working. No, that's wrong. I can't get it working. Sorry. I don't know how to close this thing. Didn't work. All right, once more. I see. Okay. Okay, so here. Okay, there. So go ahead and do that one. Actually, there are several different answers here. This is not a, it shouldn't be multiple choice, but it looks like it's forcing you to make just one question, one answer. So you can choose whatever one that you think is okay. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. Okay, so in the text, which word is used for a non-numeric variable? So non-numeric, you could use the word, number 1 is okay, qualitative, but number 2 is not good. Number 3 is okay. Number 4, no. Okay, so I would say number 1 or number 3 would be okay. Okay. Let's see if I have another one here. Yeah, here's another one. Let me get a new one.
Professor, I think there's a way of you can making it multiple choice.
It depends. I don't really know how to do it, but wait, hold on. Okay. Here, edit. So weird system. Okay, here. Okay. Now. Okay. And show you the question. Okay, that one here. Sorry, there's no 5, but go ahead. Sorry. Okay, we did that one already. Sorry about that. Let me end that. Try it again. A little bit strange system they have here. Okay. Try that. Okay, let's see what people said. Or actually, you can just see it right here. Okay, so what is the right answer? What's the right answer? A nominal variable will be non-negative? No. Will be between 0 and 10? No. Non-numeric? Yes. Okay? Okay. All right, let's continue a little bit more. Okay, so we distinguish between numeric and non-numeric, and we call non-numeric. What happened? Okay, so we call non-numeric categorical, and numeric we can call them quantitative. Okay, next, let's talk about this. Okay, we have, can somebody read that? What's that say at the top?
cross-sectional and time series data.
Cross-sectional and time series data. So what is this a picture of?
Average price per gallon for convention.
Okay, what is a gallon? A gallon is like a liter.
Oh.
It's big. It's bigger than a liter. It's like equal to about 4 liters.
Oh.
Okay, so you could say liter, you could say gallon, whatever. It's some volume, right? A volume. I think it's maybe we have to say it's a liquid volume, right? I guess, I don't know. Anyway, it's a volume. So what is this about, this picture? It's the price
per
per
volume.
per gallon for gasoline.
Gasoline. Yeah.
Okay? By the way, what happened to the price of oil in the last 6 weeks?
It went down.
Went down. How much down did it go? Anybody know?
It went down to negative.
Right. It went down to 0, and then it went down below 0. What does that mean? Well, just the fact that it went down to 0 is crazy, right? It's crazy. But then not only did it go down to 0, but actually people didn't, we had to pay people to store it for them. So, I mean, to store it. So you have, let's say you have, a big ship full of oil. It's worth nothing, but you can't just, dump it into the ocean. So you have to pay somebody to hold it. So it's worth less than nothing. You have to pay people to keep it. So nobody wants it. Even for free, they don't want it. Because they have to pay for storage if they take it. So they don't want it. I don't know why that happened, and I've certainly never heard of it happening before. But it did happen. I don't know if it's still 0, but it was like 3 weeks ago. So oil price was 0. Okay, well now this is not, you don't see any 0 here. So but you do see fluctuation in the price of gasoline, right? Okay, so again, what's this section called?
Cross-sectional and time series data.
Cross-section and versus time series, right? So time series means whenever the x-axis is time. So what about this picture? What's the x-axis?
Time. Date.
It's date, right? So it's time.
Yeah.
So this is called what?
Time series data.
This is called time series. All right? Okay, here's another one. What's this one? What's the x-axis here?
Time.
Time. And what's the y-axis?
Dow Jones Industrial Average Index.
Right. What is the Dow Jones Industrial Average? That's the measure of the stock market. So if you listen to what happened to the US stock market, sometimes they'll say the Dow Jones went up or the Dow Jones went down. It's supposed to measure the whole market, but it doesn't. It's just like 20 stocks, actually, so it's stupid, actually. It's stupid because it was good 100 years ago when you didn't have access to all the prices of everything, but now anybody can look at all the prices altogether, right? So there's no reason to look at just 20 stocks and say, oh, that means something just because these 20 went up or down. But anyway, they use it anyway. Okay, so they talk about the stock market going up when the Dow Jones goes up and going down and so on. And that's just for the New York stock exchange. There are many other stock exchanges in the US and other countries. So the Dow Jones just measures to 1. And it doesn't do a good job of measuring even the 1. But anyway, is this time series or not?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
This time series.
Why is it time series? Because it says time series up here?
It's time.
No, why is it time series?
Because it has
It's taken over a period of time.
It's taken over a period of time, or the x-axis is time.
Yeah.
Doesn't have, it could be the y, you could do it the other way around, but you wouldn't, nobody ever would do that, but you could. Anyway, I'll just say the x-axis is time, right? And this is what? What is this?
It's not time series. It's the
What?
other one. Perhaps.
What is the x-axis?
Oh, it's time. Never mind.
It's year. And what's the y-axis?
Net income.
For what company?
McDonald's.
Right. So this is the net income over time for McDonald's, right?
Mhm.
So this is also time series.
Series data.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, what's the opposite of time series? If something is not taken over time, then what? If the data is not taken at different periods of different points in time, then what?
Cross-sectional data.
Yeah, it's cross-sectional, but what's the opposite of being taken at different periods of time?
At one point in time,
Yeah, a different period, opposite of different periods of time means what? All at the same time, right? So cross-sectional means all of the measurements are taken at the same time. So what about table 1.1? This one. This one. Is this time series or cross-sectional?
Cross-sectional data.
Right. It's not taken at different times, right? We don't want to, right? Maybe this is all taken at the same snapshot in time, right? This is all at the same time, same snapshot, right? Like maybe this is whatever. Maybe this is last year, right? You know, this year it's going to look different, right? This is going to be different. Who knows? Maybe this will be different, right? We don't know. So this is not time series. It's all taken at the same moment in time, right? Whereas this is what? Taken at different moments in time. The measurements are taken at different moments in time. Okay? So we have two types of data. Time series is almost always numeric. But we just saw cross-sectional wasn't always numeric, right? But time series, I haven't really seen time. I guess you could do it, yeah. No, but it's kind of, you don't usually see time series data that's not numeric. Okay? But you could do it, I guess. Any questions about this? Okay, so that is all. So let's end now. Oh wait, what time do we finish? Yeah, now. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Professor,
Yes.
could you make it clear for the homework for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to do that today after class. I'm going to base it on what we covered. So just checking here, I guess I'll say that we are going to do chapter 1, sections 2 and 3, and maybe and this one. But I think these, no. These we didn't talk about yet. So I think we're only going to have these two for next week. Okay? We didn't actually talk about graphs, but maybe I might ask you to read that, or maybe I shouldn't. let's see what's in here. Yeah, okay, I won't do this one. So you only have one assignment. You're lucky.
Professor, how about the Khan Academy?
The Khan Academy you have to do, you'll have a lot more to do. Okay? Khan Academy you'll have a lot more to do.
But last time,
Professor,
oh, you can go.
If you want to know Khan Academy, I think it would be, it's probably going to be,
Professor, so from Cengage, we'll just have 1.3 exercise to do.
in Cengage, you'll just have this one, chapters 1, sections 2 and 3.
All right, thank you.
And for this one, it's going to be this section is what you just did. And then you're going to do this section next. Okay?
Professor, in the Khan Academy, like after the quizzes, we got a percentage. Does that also count, or is Khan Academy to see whether we did the homework or not? So does the percentage of the quizzes count into the grade?
Yeah, it counts, but you know, if you can get 80% on the quiz, that's good enough. Okay, of course it's better to get 100%, but if you can get 80%, that's good enough. But it does count, yes.
Are you also going to take into account the number of attempts we make?
No.
Okay.
You can take as many attempts as you want. Now that's not true on WebAssign, of course. WebAssign is different. On Khan Academy, as many times as you want.
Professor, what about the purchase of the book from the Cengage?
So I sent everybody a mail by way of Manava yesterday, and they said that it looks like you can't use your access code until like the last day, like in other words, probably not until probably until about the 26th, you can't use the access code. And they also said that there's not anything that will show up like, please enter your access code right now. And it might not show up until about the 26th. And then they said, beware that once you enter your access code, there might be like some kind of delay of about 1 day where you won't be able to use the system. Sounds messed up to me, but anyway, I sent that email. So that's, beware of that. Okay, so you have to buy the access code. You should buy it soon, but it seems like you can't enter it until the grace period has ended or nearly ended. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Professor, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Professor.
So, Professor.
You can go.
So, Professor, like, so the homework we had for Cengage is like 1.3 and chapter like 1, 2, and 3. We have 2 chapters to do this week.
No. I'm trying to do on Cengage. I'm trying to only give you homework based on what we have talked about. So we've only talked about this section here. So I'm going to push these to a later date.
Also, this week for Cengage, we only have 1 chapter.
Only this one here.
Okay, and how about the purchase of the book? Like, which link should we use? The link from the co-op or like the more expensive one?
It's not actually the one for the co-op turns out to be the same price because you end up having to pay something for shipment. That's what I was told. So they actually end up being the same price.
So both would be the expensive one.
Yeah, so they're both going to end up being the same cost. You can use either system.
Okay, thank you for answering, Professor.
Professor?
Yes.
I checked the homework of web assign, and even though I submit the answer, it doesn't show whether I got correct or not.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, after you finish, it shows you, right?
I'm not sure because I didn't do homework yet, but I just submit after I finish one question.
Right. It doesn't tell you, it tells you if you got it right or not, but it doesn't tell you which one was.
No, it doesn't tell that it's right or wrong.
I think it tells the right or wrong, but it doesn't tell you which one. If you got it wrong, it doesn't tell you which is the right one.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you which one you got wrong.
Doesn't tell you that you got it wrong?
It doesn't tell you which one you got wrong.
Yeah. What do you mean by which one?
If you submit 2 answers and you get 1 point, you don't know which answer is wrong.
I mean, if you submit 2 different problems?
Yeah, yeah.
But you can submit each problem by it separately, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can do it.
that, yeah.
So then you would know, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you could check like every single time you submit one particular part of the problem, but.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, I'll look into this. Okay, but right now that's the way it's set. But I'll check it a little more carefully, and maybe I'll change it. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Professor, we are not doing the graphs for categorical data.
Not here. Not in WebAssign. Not for this week.
Okay.
You're just doing this one here. Okay. Yes.
Are the polls earlier are getting graded?
The what?
The polls.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I will change this due dates for these, and I'll also look into what you asked me about the getting it right, showing that right answer or not. And from now, and then don't forget you need to do Khan Academy too. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Professor.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.